All right, Miles, I'll come to you first right now. So, your first big role on a TV show here, two-parter for you on that. What is something about hitting the set of The Wilds that just felt right, that made you think to yourself, like, yes, I got this and I am made for this? But then on the other hand, what is something about making a TV show that required a little bit of a learning curve?
Oh, great question. First part, Ivan is so similar to me in so many ways. But we share a lot of identities, a lot of understandings about the world. Unfortunately, I am a theater kid, and he is a playwright. And being able to step into a character that felt so close to me and stood for so much of what I have always wanted to speak about and represent was, yeah, that felt very cosmic and universally aligned. A big challenge of stepping into a show, especially one as well oiled and established as The Wilds, is that the women really set the bar for season one. They really laid the groundwork and let everyone know that they weren't here to mess around. And when you're showing up to set with people that already have these really deep understandings of their characters, really deep understandings of how to approach this kind of physically challenging and emotionally draining work, it's asking you to really bring your A game and match everybody, and not to mention the physical stressors of the beach and the stamina that it required to shoot. It was it's a big show, but it felt good to sink my teeth into.
Did you get the opportunity to ask any of them for any pointers, whether it's shooting that more physical material or just, being on location like that?
Yeah, absolutely. The girls are my dear friends, and I would ask them for a lot of advice. They often were like, just stick to where your character's at right now, right in this moment. You can't really think of too much about the big picture of the show. All you can really do is step into those given circumstances, those stakes that you're presented, and tell that story as truthfully as possible. And then the rest will figure itself out.
It very much does. All right, Nicholas. So for you, you have a good deal of experience, but The Wild seems like a pretty unique production to me. So even with all that experience, is there anything about what it took to shoot this show in particular that, really surprised you and maybe gave you a new tool to put in your back pocket and take on to a future project?
Of course. It's funny you say that. A lot of my previous work has been comedy. I'm normally playing the funny kid in the corner. So this show was a challenge for me in a really good way, jumping into a show that's more drama focused and telling real stories. So I found that definitely a challenge, and I was able to honestly learn from people like Miles and the cast that were opposite from me. They're all super, super talented. So, I found that quite fun and challenging and hard in the best way.
All right. For the rest of this, I'm going to put up the spoiler warning. So do not worry. We will not release this, and it will be properly branded a spoiler conversation, so no one has anything written for them. But I did want to dig into what your characters are going through here, because it's bold and it's especially well done here. So Nicholas, I'll start with you. What kind of prep did you do personally, or maybe what did you need to talk through most with Sarah and the writers in terms of, mapping out the different phases of Josh's response to what happens with Seth? Because it's an extremely complex storyline, and it feels to me, at least, like a lot to handle in an ensemble show when you only have so much screen time. But my God, you guys make the most of it.
Yeah, well, I think you say ensemble, but we had so much time in prep because I feel like Amy and Sarah really wanted to give us that space to have a conversation about how the scene was going to go and how we could best tell that story. So, there was a lot of prep we did. We met with them a bunch of times. We discussed it. We met with the director, the DOP, we had the stunt person there to make sure that, I guess, the mechanics of the scene were all good to go so that we could really focus on the truth of the moment when we were shooting the scene. In regards to what it was like shooting, you do all this prep, but even when you show up on the night, it's still 2 a.m. It's still dark and windy, and you're still in this tiny tent. And you really have to throw yourself into that moment. And it was quite intimidating in a way because you're kind of going in blind. So one of the important things was the trust that we had. We'd been working with the crew for months at that point. So being able to trust all of them, Alex and I had a lot of trust with each other in regards to that scene. So I think that all of that came into play when telling the story. And after seeing the final product, it was a relief to see that the story had come across the way that everyone had planned. It was powerful and it was gut wrenching, and I left feeling something after watching it, and I think that it's a really important story to tell.
I didn't expect any less after what I saw them accomplish in season 1 of the show, but I feel like I was very, very impressed by how well that was done. And a very similar thing for you too, Miles, because I wanted to kind of dig into just his evolution in terms of how he feels about zero tolerance, because like it's an incredibly complex approach to a subject like that, and it's quite the thing to take on for your first big project here. So I guess, like, what would you say were some of the most valuable resources or techniques that you came up with in order to prepare to tackle each stage of that as the season progressed?
Oh, totally. Cancel culture is so complicated, right? Ivan's relationship to online is a bit different than mine, but we share a lot of identities. We share a lot of understandings of the world and understandings of ourselves. I think that Ivan being so uncomfortable in this space adds to the stakes constantly, and that those defense mechanisms those defense mechanisms and those guards that he has up are pushed to the extreme more quickly than they would be in another space, especially since he's around so many boys that he wouldn't normally trust or want to be around. So at the beginning, it's a lot about like pushing that fight as soon as it feels like it's coming up, so that you give yourself a sort of softer place to land at the end of the season. Yeah.
Very well done. All right, I think I can squeeze in one more here. Just some playful predictions for the future. But, now that we know at the end of the season that the two ensembles are coming together, which member of the Dawn of Eve experiment do you think your character would have the most to gain from if they got the opportunity to spend more time together and work together on this?
Such a good question. I think for mine, the answer is maybe obvious, maybe not, but Ivan and Fatin, I think, would just be a stylish, funny, and very intelligent duo. I think they have a lot of brain power that they could give to each other.
I like that.
I would say, I think Josh and Dot. I think Dot would have a lot to teach Josh. I think in theory, he thinks that he could maybe survive an island, but she actually can. So I think he'd enjoy a lot having those discussions with her about how does this actually work? Like in theory, it should be this, but she'd be like, no, Josh, you're going to die if you do that.
I almost regret asking that, because now I want what you guys just said. And I don't want to put those expectations on the writers, but in them, I trust. 2 seasons, excellent now. Huge congratulations on it.